Excited to share with you a video that if you're watching and you happen to be white like me, well, we can come to terms with our white identity because, as you know, being white, the quality of whiteness is not a good thing. So with that, I turn to this random person who's going to straighten all the white people out.
For the first time, white people were becoming aware of their whiteness and the systemic ways that white supremacy affects all of us. In this episode, we're tackling white racial identity and why understanding your whiteness is integral to becoming self-aware as a white person. I'm Nicole Ellis, and this is the new normal.
Wow, this is the new normal, actually, and it's totally insane. It's ridiculous. This is from the Washington Post, okay? This is a real company, a real American company owned by Jeff Bezos. And I'm going to learn about my white identity from Nicole. Can you imagine if I told her about her black identity? That wouldn't work, would it? No, it wouldn't work at all. This video, though, gets even more weird.
I am originally from a smaller town in Oklahoma. Whiteness was the default and whiteness was the comfort. The more you kind of dive into that, the more I'm really realizing how deeply rooted racism is into like my everyday thought process. No matter how much you work at that, there's still even almost more work to be done.
She seems kind of excited to actually be virtue signaling on this level to the Washington Post. And remember, when you start down this pathetic rabbit hole, there's always more work to be done. You'll never be done. They'll never be satisfied, the woke left.
White people got to start getting together, specifically around race.
We're unpacking wrong things that we've been taught in history class. I realized that I needed to go back and unpack and reorganize everything that I had learned because it was completely through a white lens. Most of us in doing this work have experienced this, where there's a period of deep shame for being white and for acknowledging the harm that our ancestors have caused.
So I looked it up. My ancestors got here in 1890 from Ireland. My great-grandfather, he came, 25 years or so after the Civil War. They said he had a colonial outlook. Could that be a problem? This is all absurd. This is all ugly. This is all an actual series from the Washington Post. This is the kind of training they want to see happening in corporate America. It already is happening in corporate America. All right, a little bit more.
In theory, that sounds like a good idea, but I guess I'm curious to hear, like, what are some of the pitfalls or risks that you run if that's the only step you take?
The biggest answer is white people don't really understand racism.
Oh, be careful what you say in any of these training sessions. She chuckled when she said racism, and I don't think Nicole likes it very much. Really glaring at our friend there. Yeah, this is, be careful what you say in these things. It could be a trigger. It could set somebody off. And even though you go in there with an open heart, wanting to be fixed, wanting to be reprogrammed, you could get canceled. There's more.
There's a different cost for my friends of color to be in relationship with me. So I think one of the things that's really important is ongoing, being a friend on an ongoing basis for lots of different things, not just like thinking about racism as a part of our friendship when there's something horrible that happens. Those relationships are, number one, for me to be there for them as them for me.
May I suggest getting a cat and leaving it at that? There's something very, very bizarre about all this. You know it, I know it, and you know who else knew it and wasn't afraid to talk about it? Everybody else is. Donald Trump, President Trump, last fall.
This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody else.
Is radical,
and he would know.
What is
it was
radical
totally
about
racist.
racial sensitivity training.
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and, frankly, very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Wow, do we miss him or what? Sick ideas? I think that's what we saw in that video. Sick ideas. It's no way to talk to anybody. What was Joe Biden's response? We'll hear a little bit more from President Trump. And what does Joe Biden say?
We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's the racist.
You just don't know.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about
You
this.
don't
than he
know.
does.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like.
You see right here that Joe Biden is owned by the left, the far left. This stuff is crazy talk, that video you just saw. Did you see how President Biden called President Trump racist? He's the racist, just like that. The word has lost all of its meaning because it's thrown around so casually. And what did he say? People have to understand that people's feelings are hurt. We're going to be lectured on race by Joe Biden.
But if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
What about that guy's feelings? You were just talking about, that's totally inappropriate. It is, isn't it? We're having a ridiculous conversation about race to avoid having a serious one. And this identity politics conversation also takes us away from Joe Biden's ridiculous policies. And they are, and we're not talking about them enough. Look at this.
Hey, folks, listen up. I'm going to tell you about a benefit of the rescue plan you might not know about. I'm going to ask you to tell your friends and your families about it. You probably got a stimulus check a few months ago. That's from the American Rescue Plan. There's more to the plan than that. It's also expanded the child tax credit. That means if you have a child, you're entitled to $3,000 per year per child between the ages of 6 and 17, and $3,600 per child under the age of 6. Every working family is eligible if they make up to $150,000 for a couple or $112,000 for a single parent. And thanks to the rescue plan, if you file taxes, the payments will come automatically back to you, and they'll start coming monthly from July until the end of the year. But here's the thing. In general, the parents who need the most help to make ends meet don't actually have to file taxes if they don't make enough money, but they can still get this credit. You just have to go to childtaxcredit.gov, and they'll find the link to the non-filer sign-up. Those folks won't get the benefits if they don't sign up for them. That's where you come in. If you have children but didn't file taxes in the last couple of years, go to childtaxcredit.gov.
Everything will be great. The government will do it all. Folks are weighing in. They see this as the welfare state and another incentive to not work. We'll have Grover Norquist come by in just a little bit to discuss. In the meantime, whenever they want to add an extra layer, you notice they do that strange thing with the camera. I'll be looking this way, but the camera will look at me that way. And somehow it seems like it's more important. I think it's a phony trick. Phony Hollywood trick that Joe can't pull off.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.